This part of the video is going to be about plotting the graph of one variable functions. So we'll go over some of the examples. So let's see, if I want to sketch the graph of this function, which is a product of four linear polynomial. So I typed in this formula. I'm going to name this formula with this name formula. As you can see, this is in blue. So I haven't executed this cell yet. So it Mathematica doesn't know, and x is again an indeterminate variable, but these numbers I put it in there. So this is a polynomial passing through 1 and 0.5 and 0.3 and 0.25 roughly, exactly 0.25. So we're going to sketch this formula, this function. So the command to use here is a plot. Again, you have to capitalize the first one. It's in the black color, so you can see Mathematica knows this command. And notice that if you're using the formula inside, if you have to use a parenthesis, it's always had to be parenthesis, never use a bracket. Bracket is the beginning of the argument of a function, such as this plot command. So here's a bracket. So I typed in the plot and this beginning of argument. Whatever the inside and here is going to plot it. What we're going to plot is this formula. The next part, it has to be separated by comma, and you have to let Mathematica know and which x value you're plotting. So I wanted to plot between the x value -1 to 1.5. So if you put it in, the spaces doesn't matter. If there are spaces, it's easier to read, and whenever there's an error, and easier to figure out which part's which and something like that. So, and x is in green. It recognizes that this is some parameters involved in the plot command. So x, and it's going to recognize it's the same x in here. So if you execute these two lines, happen to be in one cell, and it's going to sketch it. So it passes through these points, like 1 and half and 1/3 and 1/4 and back and forth. It's very difficult to see here. So actually it's not showing, so let me show you the graph. So I made it a little bit smaller, so it's very difficult to see how this one crosses in there. So you can change it, kind of zoom in and stuff like that to see a better picture. So this only gives you the range of x. For example, it seems like it passes through up and down x-axis and oscillating a very small amount. Then you don't want to see this whole lot, from 0 to 2 value. Maybe you should focus on this very small range. So for that, you have to put an option in there. It's going to be comma. So for that, we have to put this plot range. This is an option. Option is separated by this comma. Then after that plot range, you have to put an arrow, which is a combined key of a negative symbol and a greater than equal symbol. And then hit space key, and then it automatically changes to arrow key. So you have to put the lower bound and upper bound. A lot of braces in the Mathematica command. So if you want to go from -0.1 to +0.1, and it's going to only show the y value -0.1 to +0.1. So you're already very, very close to x-axis, and you can see the y values are changing very, very tiny amount. We can still don't see a whole lot. So if you want to change even further to the smaller value, then you might see it better. If you think you're going to change it a lot, you can always do this type of trick, and then you're going to do, okay, I'm going to look at kind of -a between the +a, and then you want to change that. So if you hit enter, place your cursor in the first line, hit enter, and insert in between these two lines. You can change, okay, that was 1/10 before, but you can divide it further. Maybe we're going to go down to 1/30th and the semicolon. So then if you shift enter, it's going to show you it's even going to the even further and further. So let's go another level, 1/50th. Then you can see they're up and down nicely. I'm going to introduce another option in here, separate by comma, and this is called plot style. So it's case sensitive. You've got to have this P and S in capital, plot style, and there are a few things you can put it in there if there's more than one, and you have to put this curly brace there, and we can make it thick, and shift enter, and it's going to make it thick. And if you like this color to be in something called cyan, and it's going to change it. I just changed it to red so you can see this thing in red. I'm not going to show you every option that is available, but you can use this window. You can go to Window Menu and Document Center, and type this plot and learn about all the options they have. But this is the way the options apply to Mathematica Command. Some name and arrow, and then choices. So you're going to use this a lot. Another trick I'd like to show is that you can call this entire thing as a figure 1, for example, figure 1 like this, and go to the end of the line and hit semicolon. Then it's going to hide this result. If you execute it, it's going to hide. If you want to show it, it's going to be this command. Let's show that figure 1 we just defined, and it is going to show the picture we just defined. If you have to sketch a couple of them and plot them together, and this becomes useful. So I'm going to do the figure 2 with a slightly different formula. Okay, so here I inserted another couple of lines. I copied and pasted this earlier structure, and I called formula 2, and I changed this x's to sin x, see what it does. And when I'm plotting, here it's a formula, right? Formula 2, and plotting exactly the same range and same plot range. But I'm going to change this one to blue so that I can distinguish easily. So if you do that, and then semicolon, it's not going to show anything, but it's going to be, forgot to change this one to figure 2. Then at the end, if you add figure 2 like this, and it's going to show all this thing together. So I ran it. As you can see, that's a different graph and sketch than in here. So this becomes a useful tool, and let me show you another way of doing this. So I'm inserting in between this is giant one cell, and for example, if you want to call that as a list of figures, I just type this thing and you call this figure 1. So if I inserted this line, the list figures is that I collected these two pictures into a list of a single list. And then you can change this one to list figures, and it's going to sketch it. So which I just did it here. So if you do execute this line, and then it's going to show you the same thing. Sometimes if you have like hundreds of pictures, we're not to sketch it all together, and then creating a list like this is useful.